26. Stop.
Hello, Ed. How you doing?
Well, yourself?
And Sean, good to see you.
Gotcha. Good evening.
Pardon? Hello, hello.
Hello there. Can you hear me this time?
Yes.
Incredible. All right. Seem to have gotten past my initial glitch from last
No,
time.
it's useful because my lip reading skills are not as good as one might hope.
I'm very surprised to hear that, sir. From your days as a James Bond stand-in, clearly that was part of the job description.
It may have been, but I seem to have failed in that regard. So,
It's a good thing you have another career as a community board activist.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Oh, light turnout tonight.
Yeah, we got I'm up in the Berkshires right now. We got a little bit of an ice storm up here, which was fun, especially because my car was acting up a little bit, and the tech said, "I've got to get it in right away because it could implode." Now,
Was that the Tesla?
Sorry?
The Tesla?
Yeah, a thing came up that said vehicle coolant low. I had no idea there was a coolant in the car.
Yeah, there's no radiator, you wouldn't think, because there's no heat. Oh, I guess around the battery, maybe.
Maybe. But even in the manual, it doesn't say anything about it. So the guy said, "You got to get it in right away. You know, we could try to tow you," and all this stuff scared me a bit. So I got up early this morning and I drove to Latham, New York. It's about 50 miles with my heart in my throat, hoping that I would actually make it to the nearest Tesla service. And I got there and they were closed because of the ice storm. And the next one was in Mount Kisco, which is below Danbury, Connecticut. And so I drove the 150 miles down there, also wondering if I was going to make it. And I did. And then they couldn't fix it right away, so they gave me a loaner. So I have another car that I got to drive 150 miles back today. So it's been a fun day.
We are very honored that you have chosen to polish off your 300-mile driving day with being tortured by us.
No, you guys are always a pleasure.
Wow, high praise.
To Dwayne's comment,
we're coming
I
up
think
on
we have a
6:30.
competing meeting tonight with just transportation or MTA rather, and just yeah. So as co-chair, I'm missing that.
We appreciate you.
Actually, Nick Rollison from MTA reached out to the office and asked for some CB14 presents. So Sarah is there on behalf of the office tonight. And I asked her to ask them how aggressively they're doing outreach on the buses themselves, given the low turnout in these town halls.
Good question.
So we'll see. We'll see what answer she brings back tomorrow. I just texted Lauren just to make sure she's not having trouble signing in.
So I see that we're live, but are we recording yet?
No, not yet.
So I'll take this opportunity to preface this as a community board member. That any questions that I do not address in my presentation, both presentations, I'm happy to answer any questions and share my insights beyond my capacity as a senior community outreach associate at DCWP.
Sounds good.
Appreciate that. I see Lauren is in.
Oh, Ed, does that mean you're wearing two hats tonight? Except you don't actually have any hat, but that's okay.
Be pretty funny if you just go grab two baseball caps and put them on. One says community board, one says DCWP, and you just keep flipping them. Or not.
If I could just jump in really quick, again, just to be respectful of everybody's time, and also just been at work since the crack of dawn this morning. I'd love to, now that Lauren's here, kind of start the meeting and get the ball rolling.
Sounds good, Dwayne. I'm going to hit record now.
Okay.
Recording.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 23rd meeting of the Brooklyn Community Board 14's Community Environment, Cultural Affairs, and Economic Development Committee. Finally got it right. Yay. Tonight, I'm joined by my co-chair, Barton Person. Barton, do you have any greetings you want to share? All right. We're also joined by our district manager, Sean Campbell. Thank you, and Sean, for you and your team putting this together. Our agenda is pretty light tonight, but also very important. We have just a quick update from Lauren Collins on the merger of the Flatbush Avenue and Church Avenue bids. Lauren presented at a public hearing last month. And we had asked her just to come back to give an opportunity for board members who may not have gotten a chance to answer ask all of their questions, or community members who may not have gotten a chance to ask all their questions. So Lauren will be presenting just an update on the merger, where they're at now, what's the next steps, and if we have any questions, we can ask them here, or we can redirect them to Sean and the district office, and they will get them over to Lauren. We are also joined tonight by our neighbor, friend, fellow board member, Edward Sen, in his capacity as the Senior Community Affairs Associate for the New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. He will be reporting tonight on the rules that are governing tobacco sales, also providing an overview of the free tax prep and financial empowerment centers that his office oversees. So thank you, Ed, for taking the time out of your schedule to present this to our board. I know there've been a lot of questions in the community around those tobacco sales and those smoke shops that have been popping up. So I hope you can address some of that in your presentation. That said, Lauren, the floor is yours to provide an update. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, thank you, and real apologies for being late. I got my meetings mixed up, my evening meetings, but glad to be here. As far, I did the presentation before you guys before, open to any questions. If you want me to briefly go through the just general presentation, maybe I'll do a shorter version since some of you have already seen it. We can then open it up for any questions that may have come up during that time or things that weren't really clear. So that's okay. I will just jump over to the presentation. Dwayne, does that sound okay?
That sounds fine. And a bridge presentation is just fine.
It's like all weird on my screen. Hold on a second.
I'll just jump in quickly while you're setting that up. I did notice Sean had forwarded me that rather extensive document from the City Planning Commission at which they voted to approve, and at which Small Business Services had also presented and offered their support as well. But what I want to say is I was astounded at the amount of documentation and the number of meetings, the amount of engagement that was necessary to go from point A to point Z, such that you can now tell us that it has all finally been approved.
Yeah, I actually have not. I'm just going to try to open it again because it's all weird. I haven't seen that document, so I will. I'm sure it's been sent to me and I probably haven't had a chance to open it. But yeah, there was an awful lot of, there's a lot of, I talked to SBS about this, I would say at least once a week with questions and things like that. So let me just open this again. Sorry, it's taking me a minute.
It included like minutes of your various board meetings, which I saw Sean had been in attendance.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yep, Sean is an active member of our board who jumps in when we're talking about something to say, well, this is actually the way it would be done. It's always helpful. Can you guys see that? Do you need it bigger?
It looks fine to me.
Yeah, we can see it.
But okay. So this is just a slightly updated, but it's pretty much most of the same information. So as I've mentioned, we're proposing to merge the Flatbush Avenue bid and the Church Avenue bid. And there's a map on the next page so you can see where we are. So currently the Flatbush Avenue bid is Flatbush from Parkside to Cortelyou, and the Church Avenue bid is from Coney Island Avenue to Flatbush Avenue. The section of Church from Coney to around East 16th where Bobby's is only the commercial side of the street, just the way the bid was set up in the 80s. For years, we have been pretty much behaving as if we're one bid. Since I took over the second bid, just seemed much more practical. Lots of opportunities for us to share information and for us to benefit from the other bids projects. But the downside has been the administrative, which I will get to in a minute. There's 76 bids in New York City. Under this proposal, we would just be taking our current assessments, which is mandated every year. It comes from property taxes and it's not optional. We would just take the two amounts that the two bids have and just mush them together. So we're not asking for more funds. The current assessment is 203 for Church Avenue and 386,000 for Flatbush. Bids are overseen by boards of directors, which are made up mostly of property owners in the districts, and then a few commercial tenants, as well as Sean and representatives from 4 city agencies. So we have the mayor's office through SBS, Small Business Services, the controller's office, our borough president, and council member. And then I just talked a little bit about some of the events. We do a lot of business outreach, community events. We're trying to do more of supplemental sanitation. We currently have some grants, which we're very excited about. So we're doing more in the way of security. And the key reasons to merge. So one is save staff time. We estimate, I went through all the work we do. We spend about 725 hours a year, roughly, doing work the second time, doing our second audit, our second 990, our second QuickBooks entries, because a lot of things we still do have to keep separate from an administrative point of view. And there's only 4 staff people, including myself, and one of them is on a grant, so she's just with us during this grant. Economies of scale, obviously, is another obvious benefit for merging. We each pay again for everything, so this would definitely help us out. And having a unified message to bring both bids under one budget and unified decision making officially makes us more consistent, and the messaging will be much more consistent. So these are the districts. We're mostly in CB14, Sanitation District 14, and the 70th Precinct. One block face, which is from Clarkson to Parkside on Flatbush Avenue, only on the east side of the street, is in the 71st Precinct, and CB9 is Sanitation District 9. Services. So the merge bid is going to continue to do the same services. We've defaulted to whichever bid is doing the higher level of service, which generally has been Flatbush. and church is doing almost all the same programs. So the services are going to continue to be sanitation, public safety, marketing, holiday nights, holiday lights. Economic development is kind of a new one, which we've been doing unofficially, and administration costs. The budget again adds up to 589, and this is based on our current annual budgets, which are done around this time of year. We mixed them together. We took the staff hours and moved it into, and other work and moved it in to these program areas, which is what we have to put in there based on the percentage of time that people are using towards these, that staff members are using towards these different areas. The new name would be the Church Flatbush Community Alliance, and we're doing a lot more, as much as we can, with the community, with schools, and other local groups. So that's actually, I like that a lot. It really reflects the new work that we're trying to do more of. This is always a good question that people are asking is, will the bid members' assessments change? It's going to change a little bit for everyone because just the way the assessment is, those numbers I told you before, 203,000 and 386,000, it's always the same. So some members are, let's say if we have a vacant property where that's a construction site, they're going to be assessed slightly differently, but it's always going to add up to the same thing. So everyone's assessment will change. Some will go up, some will go down. A few will go up a lot and a few will go down a lot. And we've reached out to those people separately to try to make sure they understand what's happening. And this is not something that changes every year. Like this is pretty much going to be the same, again, based on factors like vacancies. But for the most part, this, what they're paying, what they would pay in FY24 in July is going to be very close to what they would be paying moving forward. You may not want to see this. This is exactly the same as what I sent you before. This is the formula. So the formula that we determine, which is how that assessment number is calculated, would be based 60% on the property's assessment will be based on footage facing Flatbush or Church Avenues, and 40% based on commercial square footage. If it's a construction site like Astoria, where Astoria Bank used to be, instead of the commercial square footage, 40% will be based on the lot size since there is no commercial square footage. Commercial condos is something that we only have, I believe, 2 or 3 of in the bid. And it's just their assessment will be determined proportionally based on the size of the condo. So the merger right now, it's been approved by both bids boards. Barton, you said you read or looked at the packet. It's now, I believe it's completed all its required reviews by the city, different city agencies, unless somebody wants to discuss, in which case we're always available. And we're hopeful it'll be completed in time for the July billing. The assessment is billed twice a year, for some people 4 times a year. We don't determine that. And I just listed the public hearings, including tonight's, and the outreach. We've done mailings, we've done member Zooms that people can just log on to, social media posts, e-blasts just to members, and then also stopping in on some businesses to talk to them directly. So that's it. And this is my contact info, but you know, you all, as you said, can get in touch with Sean through Sean. And that's it in a very large nutshell. It was not as brief as I had planned. So open to any questions, comments.
Thank you for that update, and congratulations on you know, the result of all of the hard work that you put into this. Congratulations on the merger. Most of my questions were answered. There were actually questions around the allocation of the funding, because it just looked, especially from the administrative and advocacy funding at 109,000, like you're paying folks less than minimum wage, based on the number of staff. But I'm glad to hear that it's incorporated into the other parts of the budget. You did mention during the first presentation to our board in January about the difference between a commercial property and a condo, commercial condo. Would you mind just briefly just highlighting what that difference is again?
Sure. Let me go back to that page. This is the one thing that I always ask the guy at SBS who helps us. I'm like, tell me what a commercial
And then
condo
while you're doing that, I'll open it up afterwards to board members if they have questions.
Okay. So a commercial condo is like a condo where you own a part of the building, but it's commercial as opposed to residential. So, and I'll tell you what that is. It is, I believe it's where Save-A-Thon used to be. So it looks the same from the outside. I believe it's that building on Flatbush, and on Church, it is the Max Deals, which is next to Bobby's, which opened a few years ago. Those are both commercial condos. You wouldn't know that. I only know that because I see the spreadsheet of all the properties. So, so the way those are going to be assessed, the frontage for the condos within the building is going to be determined proportionally based on the size of the condos. So if a condo has 40% of the commercial space, then that's what they're not, or let's not do 40. If their condo has 35% of the total commercial space, that's what they will count as frontage. If that makes sense, because frontage doesn't really apply because one condo might have the entire front and there might be another business in the back. Does that explain? Does it?
Makes sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to others. Hoping a head nod will acknowledge whether it does or does to others. Barton, you have a question?
Yeah, I think as you had said in the original presentation, the Flatbush bid is about double the size of the Church Ave bid. And I'm wondering that when you had done your outreach to the Church Ave merchants, if there had been any expressions of concern, that, they'll be fully represented, or that they're sort of being swallowed up, just on the basis of when you had spoken to any of them. I'm just curious what concerns there may have been and how you went about allaying those concerns.
Okay. I mean, that's a good question. The thing to remember is that we've actually been functioning like this for maybe 10 years, increasingly. Okay. So it's not a new way of doing business. It is a new way of doing less paperwork and still being in compliance, if that makes sense. No one sees the paperwork that we're doing. Yeah, but and a few people have been concerned. Almost everyone is like, I don't care, isn't this what we're already doing? That's really been the reaction. Some people even said, I thought we merged already. So it's not
always a good sign.
Right. And the benefit, I'm sorry, but the benefit is really going to be that we are going to have more time to do the work we're supposed to be doing and not doing the office work that is really supporting the other work. I really want all four of us to have more time to be out and doing the real work.
And actually, that was going to be my follow-up question. So you say you're saving about 725 hours of total time on the duplicative work. Are there any particular initiatives you want to, sort of allocate that towards, or do you think it'll just be spread out equally amongst, eco-dev and sanitation work, et cetera? Or is there something that now you feel you'll be free to pursue that you wouldn't have been otherwise?
There's so much, I don't know where to start. I mean, as it is,
okay.
All of our staff works more than they should be, and which is not really reasonable. I don't think people get enough time off, and we're always trying to catch up. I mean, one thing in general is when we do have events or activities, we don't maximize it afterwards. Like, if you have a street fair, we could use that to talk to other sponsors, to reach out to schools, and the event's over and then we're quickly on to the next thing. So that's a weird thing that I think would be really beneficial to us and help us grow and help us get more partners, which is always a good.
Interesting. I think actually Dwayne had mentioned earlier when he and I were chatting about it, that the eco-dev aspect is something that could probably use a bit more love. And it sounds like what you're just saying right there is that indeed you figure you can sort of beef up those activities.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll be quiet. Let someone else talk.
Sean, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thanks. I just kind of going back to what Lauren said about this having been the way it's been done for so long. I was one of the people who expressed concerns back when they were SBS was suggesting that there be one executive director for both bids, and as much as I admired Lauren at the time and still do, I wondered if maybe the Flatbush Avenue bid should have maintained its own executive director. And boy, I was really proven wrong, because, you know, Lauren's made the two bids greater than the sum of their parts, and created a common culture. And so I think it says a lot when board members were like, weren't we already merged? Because of that culture and that like shared, you know, the shared goals and shared vision. And it just really does make sense as one bid. So my hat is off to Lauren. I just wanted to give her those accolades, since I you know, gave her grief in the beginning and continue to do so in so many ways. But really great job, Lauren. And I'm really pleased that this is merging, and congratulate you too.
Thank you.
I do have one last question for you, Lauren. Is the new alliance planning on doing anything publicly to kind of celebrate the merger? Like, is there going to be a little party somewhere, a little, you know, sidewalk, something?
Probably. The only thing that we've started is there's this small bid grant, which is a grant that just came up. We got it about 2 months ago, and it's a lot of money that we need to spend by June 30th from the city. All the small bids were able to apply. And one thing we put in there that we have not been able to ever do on church, which is actually a benefit for church, is get tote bags made with a new logo. And we're really trying to put some thought into that. Flatbush has had more money. This is another advantage for church, actually. Flatbush has had more money. So Flatbush years ago, under me, got tote bags, these big bags, because we want nice big shopping bags. They paid for them, no sponsors. It was all about Flatbush. Church has never been able to do it, because every time it's been raised, which has come up every few years in board meetings, there's no way to pay for it. We never had enough extra money. And I don't want something like that to say, well, I was about to say the name of a healthcare company, to say like healthcare company in huge letters. I wanted to really be pure. And now this is something that we can do. So we have I don't remember if it's $20,000. I mean, the total grant between the two bids is $150,000. It's a lot. So I want to get a lot of those done. But yes, I'm sure we will be doing stuff. We have an Avenue NYC grant. We still have another year, and we're just developing the programming for July. So all of that is, yes, very much on the radar.
Oh, awesome. We look forward to it. Sean?
Just one more thing, because you mentioned events. That is something else that the bids have done, and the bid will continue to do, is that, you know, from the street fairs, and it's 2 multi-block street fairs a year, plus the Thanksgiving event that Lauren is the brainchild and the labor of love of Lauren's, that not every bid does. And the number of stakeholders and community participants that have to be pulled together into that, it's just grown over the you know, handful of years that she's been doing it. And just to finish off with another part of your grant, Lauren, I think, was the additional security. And at last night's Seminole Precinct Community Council meeting, the commanding officer of the precinct, Inspector Separano, also took his hat off to Lauren for the work that they were doing together to increase security on the block. That's it.
I'm sorry. Can I say something else about that, which is not really about the merger, but just because I'm so excited and we haven't really talked about it yet, so you guys can be the first to know. So yeah, so we met with Separano 2 days ago. We brought our security. It's just going to be one person, but it's one person in a vehicle, which is nice. And we met with him and all the officers, all the main officers at the precinct, and now have a group text. There's about 14 people on it, including Separano, and every Monday we're going to check in with him so he can say, you know what, we need someone over by Erasmus. We need, you know, so we can work with him, because I don't know what, you know, where the officers are going to be stationed, and kind of supplement what he's going to be doing. So that's super exciting.
That's a great idea.
I'm going to shut up.
No, it's great. I'm really glad to hear about that. Thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, then Barton, I will turn it over to you to lead the next part of the discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you.
as Dwayne had reported earlier, Ed Sen is here reporting on the NYC rules governing tobacco sales. He's the Senior Community Affairs Associate in the NYC Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. And he is, of course, a guest co-chair here this evening. We're very honored. Maybe I'll call you celebrity guest co-chair. And I want the committee and anyone
Don't do
watching.
that. I'm sure Stephen will get jealous. So
but I want everyone to know how assiduous Ed has been in pursuing this issue as a community member, as a community board member, and in his professional work, because he and I and Dwayne have had numerous conversations over the proliferation of stores selling seemingly illegal cannabis products and actual smokable itself. And he's described to me this sort of shell game wherein they've been able to evade being closed down by changing their names and a variety of different procedures. So he really has been doggedly pursuing this, and we've been hoping to give him the chance to brief us on what's going on and what we're trying to do to stop it. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ed.
Thanks, Barton. Thank you for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. Ed Sen, co-chair of the Transportation Committee, and also Senior Community Affairs Associate with the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. So for my first presentation tonight, I don't have a formal presentation. Just our comms team didn't think that this is something that warranted, but I have a number of links that I do want to share, some from even from our agency. So the first two links are from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, just to give you a sense of the tobacco laws that exist within New York City and the state, and also some of the penalties. I'll be following up with additional links as well, just as this conversation goes on. But just a little background information of what our city agency is. So the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, formerly known as Department of Consumer Affairs. We license more than 59,000 businesses in more than 40 industries, focusing on key consumer protection, licensing, and workplace laws. That so in this case of tobacco, there are two industries that we do license, and we exist to support businesses through equitable enforcement. So we want to make sure that consumers are not being price gouged. During the pandemic, we focused on medical supplies and PPE equipment. And also more recently, infant formula. So that's really our role. But we want to be a resource to the community by helping resolve complaints. And we as a city agency try to protect the marketplace from these predatory practices and try to strive to create a culture of compliance. A lot of what we do is community outreach and education. So both through our offices of financial empowerment, which we'll hear about later this evening, and also our Office of Labor Policy and Standards. So in that division, we deal with paid safe and sick leave, where we want to ensure that New Yorkers are able to take time off to take a sick day and not be punished for that as well. So to start us off, I wanted to share that with regards to unlicensed smoke shops in New York City, we are seeing what was previously reported as 1,400 unlicensed shops. Now I'm seeing in the news the number has climbed up to 1,500 across all 5 boroughs. Where DCWP fits in is that we regulate the 2 license categories, and those license categories are the tobacco retail dealer license and for vapes or electronic cigarettes, and the component parts that would require an electronic retail dealer license. And it is our job to enforce these 2 licenses throughout the 5 boroughs. What we're seeing with unlicensed smoke shops, not only are they selling cannabis, they are selling specific tobacco products, including flavored tobacco, which is there is a current ban on. As far as the unlicensed nature of these smoke shops, many people are seeing them pop up, and I wanted to just reiterate that there are only, to my knowledge, 4 currently licensed cannabis shops, and they're all in Greenwich Village, specifically in Manhattan. And in terms of the number of smoke shops that you are seeing in within our district, there is presently a law that was introduced by City Council in 2017. So presently, there are community district caps on tobacco retail dealer licenses and electronic cigarette retail dealer licenses as a result of local law 144 and 146 in 2017. And this law specifically set caps at 50% of the number of tobacco retail dealer licenses and electronic retail dealer licenses at the time of the passage of this bill. And all existing licenses were grandfathered into the cap, which is why many community districts currently have active licenses that exceed the allowable than those allowable under the cap. And the only way that anyone can receive a license is an application for these licenses would be submitted if a license were available in your community district, or a business with a previous license was sold to and someone acquires more 10% or more shares in that corporation, or there's a change in partnership. The new business would have to apply for a new license at the same location, as long as there is a current active license in good standing at that specific address. So you can't take an address and move with, excuse me, you can't take a license and move your business. So a license is permanently affixed to that specific address. And you have, so anyone that is acquiring this new business would have to apply for a new license within 30 days of the sale or change in that business. There's also certain areas such as airports or parks that are not subjected to community district caps. So I just wanted to share this open data link in the chat to give you a sense of the active. So within Community Board 14, there are currently no licenses available. There are currently 66 active tobacco retail dealers that are operating licensed under DCWP, and the cap for Community 14 is 57. So that number would have to decrease in order for before DCWP would issue new licenses. And the same is true for electronic cigarette retail dealer licenses. So there are currently 34 licenses that are in operation within CB14, but and that cap is at 21. However, this has not stopped many unlicensed smoke shop operators from opening businesses. So if you're curious to learn about the specific businesses, you can also look on open data. Here is the list of active retail dealer licenses, and you can filter through that. So you can just, I think the category I'm looking through here. So under Community Board, you can search for specific Community Board 14 just to see. So that's the link for active retail, active tobacco retail dealers. And there's a separate open data that I'll have to pull up in a bit to share with you. But so that's just to give you a general sense of some of the laws. So with regards to the enforcement of cannabis, having been in a number of meetings, public meetings as of late, a lot of New Yorkers have been focused on the sale of cannabis. So DCWP does not enforce. We don't have any enforcement authority at the moment for the sale of cannabis or synthetic cannabinoid hemp products, which would include CBD, Delta-8, and the like. So this falls under the jurisdiction of the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. And in an effort to combat many of these unlicensed smoke shops, I'm sure you have seen recent press conferences. So I believe 2 weeks ago, the mayor made an announcement with the Manhattan DA with regards to new laws that they're trying. So ultimately, this is a interagency, many different agencies working together. So between the sheriff's office, DCWP, and OCM, and now the Manhattan DA, we're just trying to utilize as many tools in the toolbox to just really get a handle on the situation here. When DCWP does go out and conduct enforcement for unlicensed tobacco and electronic cigarettes, we do notify OCM of specific locations. We are also notifying the sheriff's office of these specific locations. So, and for the license of businesses within the district, we conduct annually an inspection. An inspection annually for all licensed TRD and ECRD business as a part of our requirement. However, if we do receive complaints, we will go and re-inspect. However, whenever we receive complaints about unlicensed smoke shops, we will inspect and for any violations that we encounter upon our inspection. So, let's see. There are also some other things I wanted to share. So, I think, bear with me. So just to give you a sense of what our inspectors are looking for when they are conducting inspections, I'm going to share in the chat two of our different checklists when our inspectors are going out into the field. So there are just really some complications with the legislation that's being involved in terms of the role of enforcement and who that would fall to. And there's just it's currently a patchwork of excuse me. It's become a patchwork in the sense that agencies are working together to resolve this issue. I can't speak on behalf of OCM, but even where how should I? Let me rephrase this. So, for example, what we're seeing here with electronic cigarettes or vapes, if a business is engaging in vape business, we will inspect and issue summonses for any violations that we encounter upon this inspection. But while we don't have any enforcement authority over the sale of cannabis and these synthetic cannabinoid hemp products, if they are selling vape parts and things that are being used, we do have a role there. And because there are licensing, so there is just sort of a shortfall with just how this legislation was written, where so I believe there is some legislation in the works to fix that, where some of these licensed businesses are available to sell vape products. But as to my knowledge, if we were to inspect even a licensed cannabis shop and they are selling these component parts for electronic cigarettes, we do have a role and they would require a license from us. So
Can I ask a quick question?
yes, absolutely.
So I think you'd said there's something to the effect of 1,500 unlicensed merchants out there operating in this black market, I guess, for lack of a
Yes.
better phrase. How many inspectors can DCWP and OCM put out in the field, either in Brooklyn or New York City?
I can't speak for OCM. I believe they are currently relying on the sheriff's office for most of their enforcement, and we would and NYPD and we would conduct joint inspections. But with regards to DCWP, we have two separate units that would go out and conduct inspections within DCWP. So we have a tobacco unit that specializes with this enforcement, where they would be accompanied by a minor, in this case, someone under the age of 21. And their main purpose is to conduct undercover operations to discover if a business is, whether they're licensed or unlicensed, selling to minors. And we also have our borough-wide unit, where I believe we have about anywhere from, I want to say, 13 to 16 inspectors just for general businesses and any complaints that we receive, where they would inspect various licenses, including tobacco shops, and they would primarily go through the inspection checklist that I shared with you. So that is their primary responsibility. But
So that doesn't sound like an awful lot to be covering how many different businesses that are under your purview?
we have 59,000 licenses that we've issued to businesses. But if you
I guess the
bear with
direction I'm
me-
headed in is, when we put together a district needs statement, maybe one of the things we can advocate for is, extra staffing for DCWP or giving OCM its own staffing so that you've got a better shot at trying to take down some of these illegal stores.
If you bear with me, so I can find the number of how many inspections that we've conducted.
That's right. I don't need it right now, but I'm just getting the feeling that you guys are overwhelmed with the task. And, the fact that so many stores have opened up so quickly has made it really difficult to keep up with it, especially since there seems to be no established point organization or team to take control, and that you're all, as you say, it's sort of a patchwork where you're all sort of feeling your way around whose responsibility is what. So I just wanted to throw that in. Just go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine, and I'm happy. I see Shauna has her hand up.
I mean, just you're doing a great job of explaining something that is extremely complicated, and there are so many moving parts. But pardon me, certainly can't advocate for funding OCM because that's a state office, and the coordination between the city and state is or the lack of it is pretty alarming, because the businesses that don't have licenses to sell tobacco and ERCD products, they're still paying their taxes. They're still registered as a business with the state of New York. There's nothing to catch it at the state level for being an unpermitted city business. And I think OCM they're not setting up to inspect stores that have TRD and ERCD licenses that might also be selling Delta 88 and cannabis products. They're setting up to inspect sort of their own their own family of stores. So I don't see them, like, I don't think we could call OCM to come to Central Brooklyn because one of our tobacco stores also has a cannabis product. That would go directly to the sheriff's office. And I'll try to get it in the chat, and if not, I'll get it to anybody who emails. There was a city council hearing on this, and so you really get a sense of the extent to which DYCD, because I don't know if you mentioned this, like, even when you do enforce, you'll issue a violation, but then that still has to go to an oath hearing, and that could take a long time, and it can get adjourned and take an even longer time. And while that's going on, I don't know that DYCD can go back. Can they?
So Not while, I was gonna cover that, Sean, but yes.
Sorry.
No, thank you for that. And in terms of OCM and their role as it relates to tobacco, I believe as of the fall, I want to say November, their board of governance issued specific guidance that regulated what cannabis shops can and cannot sell, and one of the things would be tobacco, in addition to snacks and the like, just so that we are differentiating and drawing clear lines of where certain stores can and cannot be. A lot of what we're seeing in terms of the inquiries that we're receiving from community members, so we are asking that the community members file 311 complaints and share the 311 complaints with your office, Sean, so that we can possibly expedite that. And I want to hold that note on 311 and share some, divulge some information with regarding that. So for each violation that we identify, we level a civil penalty against the business, and these are cumulative for each subsequent day that the business is in operation from the date of the violation until their scheduled oath hearing. So subsequent violations that follow an inspection after this scheduled oath hearing will result in increased civil penalties. And in terms of what some of the complaints that we're dealing with is the proximity of these businesses to schools. I know OCM has their specific criteria that mirrors what the SLA has in terms of 200 feet for houses of worship, or within 200 feet, and within 200 feet for schools in New York City. For DCWP, we enforce there's a law that allows us to enforce public displays of tobacco. So whether it's advertising specific or marketing geared towards kid or products, or displaying smoking paraphernalia within 500 feet, that is something that we are trying to focus on as well. However, DCWP can't simply shut down a business. So I know between the sheriff's office and OCM, and NYPD, they're working on nuisance abatement laws. To get rid of some of these bad actors, these unlicensed smoke shops. DCWP also has a procedure after subsequent violations and unpaid penalties that accrue over a period of time. At that point, we can consider sealing a business. I also wanted to share in the chat, just I mentioned some of the penalties, and I am remembering my comment about 311 and what I wanted to share. So let me just share that in the chat. And to be frank, so just to just peel back the curtain a little bit, in terms of your 311 complaints, they do work, they are effective, and I think if Dwayne and Barden decide to see, like, hey, I noticed the smoke shop on Church Avenue, let your friends know. Like, the volume of 311 complaints does matter, and the higher the number, that will affect that will force us to really take it. So I just wanted to just preface that. However, because OCM is a state entity, they have their own complaint hotline where 311 complaints will not be filtered to them. And I also want to be sure that I think the detail matters in terms of your 311 complaints. The more detail, the better. But in that detail, we're seeing if it's solely about cannabis, our agency cannot, like, that's not our role. So if it's about unlicensed smoke shops and unlicensed tobacco sale of tobacco, or the sale of tobacco and vapes to minors, yes, that is where we fit in. So these are just
That distinction is interesting.
Yeah, these are just different ways in which that we can help to address the problem based on the laws that we have. And I'll address I see two hands up, and
Yeah, I was going to go to Glenn next. I believe you were up.
Thank you. I'm looking at this from I think, a slightly different perspective. We've got a lot of, I guess you're calling them black market cannabis shops, but why is it that now that the state has made it legal to sell and buy cannabis, there are only 4 licenses? There should be hundreds of licenses issued by this point, I would think. So what's going on? That's my question. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. I wish OCM were here in the room to address that. There are a number of businesses that will be opening, but I can't say that the rollout has helped the matter. Just in terms of fighting against the current what we're currently dealing with and what we're currently seeing with unlicensed smoke shops and the proliferation.
You have a follow-up, Glenn?
Can I-
Otherwise, go ahead.
May I add to that, though? I mean, Glenn, the preliminary, the first licenses are going to people who have been justice involved, or family members who were impacted by past laws regarding use of marijuana, and those people have to have also run a business. So that, and that, or the like in the case of Housing Works, be an organization that serves people who are justice involved because of past laws. So, you know, it's a trying to funnel that preliminary group in first, I think has been a bureaucratically difficult. And then they've had to put things in place because the original application fee was $2,000 or something like that. So the state's working to assist with rentals and just to assist their primary applicants with some of the hurdles that they have up. So I think that's part of why it's slow. And then I think eventually there will be hundreds, at least hundreds.
Dwayne, I see you have your hand up, but I see we've also been joined by Assemblymember Brian Cunningham. Would you defer to the Assemblymember so I can ask?
Happy to defer to the Assemblymember, especially considering the conversation we're having about the state involvement.
I was going to defer to you, Dwayne, but just wanted to come on and say good evening to everyone and thank you so much for hosting. This popped out at me. One, obviously a former member of Community Board 14 and always excited to join you guys, but also just to announce that my office has a arts task force that meets every third Tuesday of the month, beginning next month. We've had about 3 meetings so far, but just wanted to flag that for folks who may be interested in the task force serve as a way of informing legislative policy up in Albany in terms of what we can do in arts and culture. But again, this is my down week, and it's excited to be in community, on web with folks, and not have to be in session, just listening to what great things are happening in the neighborhood. So thank you so much, Sean and team, for all the incredible work you do at Community Board 14. Now, yield the rest of my time back to the wait and listen. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Brian. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Thank you for joining. 2 quick things, one a question, the other just a point of clarification. Sean, you were mentioning before in your ask of Ed about who was in first, you kept saying DYCD. So I just wanted to know if I want to be clear that you're using the incorrect acronym.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. I just don't want anybody from DYCD seeing this and saying, "Hey, we have nothing to do with this."
Thank you for that. I didn't catch it. Thank you.
That's all right. So just a point
DCWP.
of clarification. When Sean mentioned DYCD earlier, she's actually referring to DCWP.
Correct.
I do have a question, Ed, around, you mentioned a number of active tobacco and e-tobacco licenses in Community District 14. And, that we're above our capacity right now, above our cap, and that anything new opening up would need to, there wouldn't be an opportunity for them to get a license. However, we do still see, I know just on my end of the district, there've been 4 in the last 6 months that have opened up, and at least 2 local former delis have converted themselves into smoke shops. So I'm curious as to from an enforcement standpoint, like how often are you guys targeting like communities like ours to kind of do enforcement and check new businesses that are popping up, and also, considering Lauren's on this call, how can an organization like a BID, in addition to community members reporting, but how can a BID approach this with like property owners in terms of ensuring that the business that's going in is not an unlicensed business?
So in terms of just our overview, like our reach in terms of enforcement, so our inspectors are out in the field on a regular basis, and even though they're not scheduled to inspect like a smoke shop, they may see one next door or just on their route. Like, so they do take notes and make those observations, and that is real-time information that's sent back to our offices. And or even like if they encounter a business that not necessarily an unlicensed smoke shop, but a business that happens to be out of business. That's just important data for us to be constantly collecting, just to make sure that we are aware of the licensed businesses and unlicensed businesses that may be around. So and in terms of the BID's involvement, so I can only speak for a good chunk of Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn, because that's primarily the area that I cover. And the BIDs that I've worked closely with there are in conversations with City Hall on interagency calls with where they're a part of the Corridor Recovery Task Force. And so I know City Hall has done specific outreach to all the BIDs throughout the city to ensure that all their voices are heard. And these are some of the issues that have come up. I see Lauren has her hand up, but but we're also open to conversations. Just we have BIDs that communicate with us on a regular basis as well.
Lauren, go ahead.
Can I just add something? Thank you. Yeah, I'm the co-lead for all of Brooklyn on that task force, on the mayor's task force. And so we talk about this periodically, and also I'm the co-chair of the BID Association's Quality of Life Working Group with along with the Times Square Alliance. So we're in the mayor's face a lot about stuff, and this is something that comes up regularly. So we will be on top. But this is a fascinating conversation because I didn't know a lot of these details. So thank you.
Thanks for advocating for us. It sounds like you're well positioned to, as you say, be in everybody's face and keep us at the forefront. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Ed, do you have a couple last points you'd care to make?
Yeah, I mean, if again, Lauren, feel free to reach out to us. I happen to sit on the board, but also just as a resident in the community, if there are any things that I can help, maybe just look further into and on your behalf or on behalf of the residents in this community district, I'd be more than happy to. As far as other points, I know Wayne also mentioned just in terms of engaging landlords and property owners. That's certainly a conversation that's being that's going. It's ongoing, as you saw with the press conference with the mayor and the Manhattan DA. As far as my involvement, it's currently above my pay grade. And I'm not fully aware of additional. I mean, hopefully they're talking to Dan Gonzalez as well, and similar things are happening in Brooklyn as well. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to share more information about our free tax prep services.
Looks like Dwayne has maybe the last word here. Go ahead.
Just one last thing, in terms of that outreach, if at some point a recommendation can be made that a toolkit or a media kit be provided for organizations like BIDS, like the community board, because these are tough questions, especially given that things are not clear from the state. It'd be really helpful, I think, for folks like Lauren or even Sean, as people are calling in, and so if the suggestion can be made that a toolkit be made or put together specifically for organizations like BIDS or the community boards, so that they have some sort of guidance on how to respond to some of this. I think that if that recommendation can go back to your bosses or the folks that are making those decisions, it would be very helpful to all of us.
Absolutely, and because Manzor is here, and Manzor works exclusively with our comms department. Yeah, let Abby know, Manzor.
Hi, you're talking to me, Karazim?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Hi. My question is, I live on Coney Island Avenue, and there are hundreds of shops on Coney Island Avenue.
A little trouble hearing you, Manzor. I don't know if maybe if you lean closer to the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, much better. Thank you.
It's okay?
Oh, that's much better. Great.
I live on Coney Island Avenue, and there are hundreds of shops on Coney Island Avenue, from Beverly to, you can say, Avenue J, and also on McDonald Avenue in Brooklyn. So hundreds of shops, they are selling illegal tobacco products from South Asia, and without license to even minors. But they charge too much to the customers, number one. And years back, DCA advertised about spices imported from South Asia as well. That those spices which used for food, for cooking purpose, they contain lead, and it affects also females during pregnancy. So they are still in large numbers. They are being sold in these places all over, even especially in New York. What DCA is doing on this special issue?
I can't speak on regards with regards to the spices that are being sold. I think that's more of an issue with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. But if you have specific locations of unlicensed shop, feel free to share them with myself and Sean, and we will ensure that these businesses will be inspected. But I just wanted to echo what Dwayne was saying, and in your communication with our director or assistant commissioner of communications at DCWP, please let Abby know that we definitely need a media toolkit for this specific topic of tobacco. But
Thank you. All right.
Okay, Ed, so you want to transition now from vices to taxes, though some might say taxes are vices too?
yes. So let me just pull up my presentation. You bear with me.
For this one, you have got point of PowerPoint?
Yes, I do have a
Great.
PowerPoint.
So what, it's like 2 months until tax day.
Just about.
So perfect timing.
If we can just quickly point out, Barton, Sean, thank you for sharing that information in the chat. Sean just shared in the chat the legislative calendar for the City Council, specifically around some of this, some of the topics that we're discussing now. So I would encourage you all to check out the link, look at it, look at the legislation, and whatever legislation you feel our council members, and we have 4 representing our district, need to be involved in. Contact their offices and let them know what approach you would love for them to take on it.
If you're ready, Ed, feel free, take it away.
Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So thank you for joining me for my second presentation of the evening on financial empowerment. Again, my name is Ed Sen, and I will be presenting on NYC free tax prep and NYC financial empowerment centers. So I think I earlier gave you an overview of our city agency. This is our mission statement. We license tobacco shops and we enforce workplace rights. And I'd like to focus a little bit more of our Office of Financial Empowerment. So there are 2 major programs that we hope that can save New Yorkers money and achieve your financial goals. The first being NYC Free Tax Prep, and this is a service that has been going on in New York City for over 21 years. This is an annual tax campaign where we connect New Yorkers with certified preparers who are paid by the city to do your taxes for free. So with NYC Free Tax Prep, you're using a trusted professional service and avoiding having to pay expensive tax preparer fees. So we're hearing that New Yorkers are paying anywhere from $200, $300 upwards to $500 just to have their taxes prepared. These preparers are trained to ensure that you're claiming valuable tax credits that would mean a bigger refund and more money going back to your household. And many of our city's working families and individuals, for them, a tax return can be just a significant paycheck for the year. Or and we're finding that too often that money is being left on the table because folks might not actually understand that they're eligible for certain tax credits, or that they're using paid preparers who charge them for services that would otherwise be free. Example of some of these important tax credits are the child tax credit or the earned income tax credit. And we're seeing that more than 800,000 families in New York City are eligible for the earned income tax credit. And this just this past year alone, DCWP and Mayor Adams has fought in Albany to expand this important tax credit to put more money in the pockets of hardworking New Yorkers. So with New York City Free Tax Prep, we've had many success stories over the years. So since 2014, our providers have completed more than 900,000 tax returns and bringing an estimated fee savings of $136 million to many hardworking New Yorkers. Last year, we had a filer who learned about the child tax credit and got connected with our services, and they were able to receive more than $30,000 in their tax refund after filing with our services. So our providers can complete tax returns for all taxpayers, regardless of their immigration status. And to file for free using our services, generally speaking, families have to have an income of $80,000 or less. And for single filers, they have to have an income of $56,000 or less. However, there are some sites that may vary and offer higher income thresholds. And I'll help the audience tonight navigate our website. But that website is nyc.gov/tax prep. And to look at our map for locations and details, we have more than 150 sites across the city that offer a mix of different services to best meet your needs. So in this case, some of our tax providers can work on prior year returns in addition to amending prior year returns as well. We're seeing that a lot of seniors that were not aware of through the CARES Act, the stimulus check that was offered, and that can be still claimed by filing prior year returns, even though they may have not had any income at all and didn't feel the need to that they should file their taxes. We're also helping many asylees that are eligible to work currently file their for their ITINs as well. So there are 4 different types of services that we offer. The first being in-person tax prep, where this would be a 40-minute to an hour appointment at a tax site where you're sitting down with a knowledgeable IRS certified VITA, the tax preparer. So that's volunteer income tax assistant. These volunteers would help you complete an accurate tax return. There's also drop-off services where you would drop off your documents and pick them up at you can pick up your completed return at a later date. And virtual tax prep which is new as of a few years ago because of the pandemic. This is an existing service that we're continuing. where it's an online service, and you're still sitting down with an IRS certified Vita tax preparer, but over video conference. And during this appointment, you're sharing your documentation over a secure digital system. And you submit photos or scans of your tax documents for the preparers, and then you just complete your return by via either video conference or also over the phone. And lastly, our assisted self preparation, where free tax prep on your you would complete your return on your own, but should you have any questions, you can schedule an appointment over the phone or email for specific questions. And this is to be completed on specific tax software. And the filers would need access to a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone, and a stable internet connection for this last service. I'd like to highlight that a language access is extremely important. So our sites have at least one of the 13 languages, if not more. So some sites may have multiple language capacity. So where our volunteer preparers would be able to speak different languages. And if a site does not offer a specific language that is that a filer may need, the city is contracted with a translation service to help facilitate their appointment. So in addition to these 13 primary languages that we offer our services in, our translation services has capacity in more than 180 different languages. And in terms of the documentation that you would need, we just want to make sure that you're bringing a photo ID, such as your ID NYC, driver's license or a state issued license, or your passport, tax ID information such as your social security number or your ITIN number, which is your individual taxpayer identification number. You would be providing proof of income such as your W-2, 1098 or 1099 documentation. We want to remind folks that childcare expenses can be deducted as well. And you can also share your bank account and routing information for your refund to be deposited directly. Lastly, I want to mention one other thing. Should you choose to use a paid preparer for your taxes, you as a consumer have rights as well. And DCWP produces and requires paid preparers to disclose a consumer bill of rights regarding tax preparers, so that you may be alert for preparers that overcharge or charge hidden fees or file your returns without your permission. Something that we're happy to announce that's new this year is tax prep services for self-employed New Yorkers. So if you work for yourself and you need to file taxes annually or make estimated tax payments quarterly, we can help with that as well. There are specific sites that are dedicated to self-employed New Yorkers where you can get additional free resources in addition to getting your taxes filed. So such as workshops on the basics of tax filing and record keeping if you have your own business, one-on-one consultations, and different resources and support toolkits as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding NYC free tax prep, but next I'd love to talk to you about our financial empowerment centers. And these are locations where you can go and meet with your own personal financial counselor. This is a free service available to anyone who is over the age of 18 and whether they live or work in New York City. There's no income requirement or immigration status restriction. They are operating citywide across more than 30 in-person sites. And since 2008, our counselors have helped more than 65,000 New Yorkers reduce their debt by $85 million and build more than $10 million in savings. So when you meet with a financial counselor, the first thing that they'll ask you is what your goal is. And so, for example, are you looking to repair your credit? Are you looking to save up for a purchase, be it a car or a home? Do you need help tackling debt? So from there, our financial counselors would develop an assessment of your financial health and how they can work with you to achieve your specific goal. Your financial counselor they're able to develop a short-term and long-term goal a short-term and long-term plan to achieve your goals. So we encourage that you schedule follow-up appointments and stay connected. Services for appointments are also offered during weekend hours, in the evenings, and also over the phone. And we've also expanded our financial empowerment centers in partnership with the Department of Small Business Services. They're Workforce One career centers. And there are 10 new financial counselors that will be placed in these Workforce One centers in all 5 boroughs. And this expansion will serve about 4,000 clients per year. And specifically, these services will be integrated into SBS's workforce development programming and will only be available to Workforce One clients. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I will end this slideshow and stop sharing for a moment, but I want to just help folks navigate. Or can you see the website?
Yep, you can see it.
Great. So if you were to type in your browser nyc.gov/tax prep, this is the primary site that this will take you to. So for the services that I mentioned, both in person and online, you can see here for individuals and families, and then the second section is for self-employed New Yorkers, and you'll be able to find more information there. But just to give you a sense of the services available of in-person sites, and have our map, and depending on your language needs, you can also just sort and select from there. But I believe our wonderful friends at Canva happens to host a site off the top of my head, but I would love to just give you more accurate information. I know within the district, Kojo is also a sponsor of the site. I'm having some slight difficulties. So here, so this is the Fort Greene Council over on Ocean Avenue. They're working in partnership with Food Bank. So I want to highlight that Food Bank, I believe all their sites across the city have a limit of $60,000 for all filers. So you can schedule an appointment, I believe, through their website, and these are the hours of operations. But our friends down in Midwood, Kojo in Flatbush. So here is just what I mentioned, just as far as the income limit. So for families, it's $80,000, and for individuals without dependents, it's $56,000. They specialize in amended returns and prior year returns, in addition to the returns that are being offered. In addition to returns that are to be filed this year. In terms of language capacity, so they offer services in 7 different languages, and they are open Monday through Friday, and also on Sundays as well. So a lot of availability. Their phone number is listed here on the website, but if you're further up north in the district, Metro Health Plus on Church Avenue offers services as well in partnership with Grow Brooklyn. And this, I believe, yes, this is the Flatbush Library over on Linden Boulevard with specific services. And I thought Canva had a site, but maybe I misspoke. I don't want to get them in trouble. But as far as sites within our district and also just slightly outside of our district, Met Council over on Fort is partnering over here. Excuse me. So that's just to give you a sense of in-person sites. And as far as online services, we have a whole list of different partners, whether it's virtual tax prep or assisted tax prep. That's all listed here as far as their hours. So our neighbors nearby over at the Bed-Stuy Restoration Corporation offer services virtually. They also offer in-person services as well, should you want to go over on Fulton Street a little further
I have to say,
northwest.
I'm pleased to see that there's a separate category for self-employed. With the gig economy, becoming what it is, there are probably a lot of people who, are halfway between just being a regular employee and actually, being a full employee. Of course, that's why they're called self-employed. But I feel that they could probably pretty easily slip between the cracks and may not be aware at all of the various details of what their place in the financial
Martin,
world
I will have to give credit where credit is due to our mayor. This was a part of his economic blueprint to expand these services to small businesses and self-employed individuals. And so just to give you a sense of the services here for that. I'm happy to take any questions, but I also wanted to just highlight our free financial counseling. It's a different button here that you can access, but the link to that would be nyc.gov/talkmoney. I'll throw those in the chat as well when I'm answering some questions, but and just to highlight how easily you can schedule an appointment. And this may be something that would be of interest as well. There's a ready to rent program that we can help New Yorkers with as well, just helping to check credit and calculating income for housing applications. But for our financial empowerment services that I mentioned, depending on where you're located and your willingness to travel, I mean, we have over 30 sites across the city. So the closest within our district, I believe, so this is our friends at Canva.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. So let's say their earliest availability. So we can schedule one for next Tuesday, the 28th. So that's just to give you a sense of how. And so next Tuesday at 3. And you can also select your counselor too. I think just given the time frame, there may be not too many availabilities, but it's as simple as just entering your first and last name, your email address, your phone number, and just confirm that you're not a robot, and then you'll just submit. So so with that,
It's sort of like a buffet. You get to pick and choose what you want and what you need.
yes, absolutely. So I'm
I'll
just
tell you
going
what,
to
if you could,
sharing for now.
just so we can try to help everybody get home or back to their dinner or something. If you have a few more minutes, maybe we could just finish up by 8. If there are a couple last things you wanted to toss in, and I see Dwayne has his hand up.
So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, but let me just share the links in the chat. And yeah, I'm happy to address any questions that folks may have.
Maybe while you're putting the links in, Dwayne, you want to fire away?
And quickly, because we are running up on about an hour and a half now. In the past, you guys are really good about, and you'll see a running theme with me. Media kits, toolkits, things that help us as community members and as a board get the information out. You're going to send information to Sean. We know that, but like individually, where can I get a flyer in Creole or in Urdu or somewhere else where I can print out and share with my neighbors that I come across?
I believe that is on our website, but if it's not, that's on our comms team. I do sincerely apologize. But Yes, I can definitely have that information readily available. That is something that we are working to improve on, as far as media kits and but yes, I will bring that back to our team as
Yeah.
well.
I think that's important. It's great. Like our community board has been very good at getting information out. But like I look at people on this call now that I know I engage with regularly, people like Corazon or Barton, um, you know, share things regularly online. I know Michelle sends stuff out regularly to communities, and we have a broad network. So a way to take some of the lift off of the community board as board members, you know, we can. I'm always advocating for this. That I feel like that's part of our role we're supposed to be the kind of key stakeholders in our specific areas of the district, and sharing the load with the district office to get word out about all of these different resources. So if you can find a way to get your comms team to create just a general flyer, like, and that can redirect people back to the website, I think that would be great.
I'll be sure to share that with Sean and both you and Barton and any other board members that would want that information. So I know I'm not seeing it on our website. That is something that is, I believe, just internally that should be made generally available to the public as well. So I will share that note. Thank you, Dwayne.
We'll credit Dwayne with that improvement to the city system. Are there any other questions? If not, then Ed, thank you so very much for both presentations. And is there any other new business that anybody would care to bring up? I'll take that as a no. Then how about a motion to adjourn?
Wait, before we adjourn, just a reminder to everyone, and Sean, correct me on the time, but our youth service committee meeting is next week, Tuesday, the 27th. No? Am I wrong?
Well, the 27th is a
I'm
Monday,
sorry,
so you got the
Monday.
number right. Yeah. Monday the 27th, 6:30.
At 6:30. It'll be the planning meeting for our 16th annual youth conference. And for those of you that engage with that, you know how big of a deal. Let's try to get these kids access to resources, access to jobs. So if you can join us to help with the planning, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated.
And Dwayne, just to add to that, the Monday, April 3rd is the youth conference itself.
Yes. And we're back at
and it's
Brooklyn
back
College?
at Brooklyn College's Subo building. Save the dates have been sent out. People have already sort of pre-registered. They've actually registered to register. So I think we're gonna turn it around this year again.
So Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, just I had the youth conference in the back of my mind, and I was thinking, you know, I don't know if these resources exist or if you guys have a table, Ed, that you guys set up, but or Sean, having these kind of financial thing. I know the youth conference is about jobs, but my experience working with young people, they're always interested in information about what planning a budget will be, what filing taxes will look like. These are kids who graduated at 18 and are looking for those kinds of services, as are their families. So I don't know, just in the back of my mind.
Great point, Eric. Thanks.
Thanks for that note, Eric. So I started with the agency last year. I was present at the last youth conference. I will definitely make an appearance again this year. So yeah, thank you for that reminder, Eric. I'll share that with my team, and if I won't be there, we'll get someone else to be present as well.
And just to the point, and Sean knows this, and some of you already know, youth conference is not just about jobs. It's about resources for our young people and their support with their families. So it's more than just jobs. Its primary focus to try and get the kids employed, but it's way more than jobs. Way more.
Eric's point, what Ed's group has to offer would be very valuable. So on that, and at 8:01, I will call the meeting to a close. Thank you all so much. I think we aired some great issues and had some great presentations. And I will look forward to seeing you all next time. Take care.
Good night.